That is just bad for Stork. Stork has all of his troops on the high ground because he needs to prevent the tanks from getting up there and shelling his one remaining expansion. Stork just on one gas right now, and this is really bad for Stork. I don't know if there's a way for Protoss to come back. They're equal on food count, 80 to 80 here between Stork and ForGG, and ForGG does have that seal on the natural expansion. Stork cannot pick it up. He probably will try to pick up the 11 o'clock, but it still leaves him very vulnerable. He only is on one gas. He's not going to build enough tech units really to deal with it. He's not going to get any Templar, certainly, I think. I think he's going to have to rely on speed lots to defend himself against tanks for now. I don't even think he has a shuttle up anymore. So in big trouble here, Stork really is. Stork trying to pick off that SCV. Looks like he'll get that SCV with 2 probes. Nice work there. Picking up that expansion in the 11 o'clock. ForGG will know it's coming, and he might send some vultures over. Actually, we're seeing something moving on the minimap, so I think those are a pair of vultures moving to the 11 o'clock, and looks like they're being meted with a pylon wall there, so Stork playing well there, preventing the vultures from getting in. Meanwhile, shout out to SC2GG.com. There's a new SC Cup going up there, free for everyone of all skill levels to register, of course, and basically it's going to be a Pro League style team play. And there's so far, I think, 80 or 90 members already signing up. I might be signing up, so I'll be on one of the teams, and, you know, I'll just be like Firebet Hero on Sansum Khan, except terrible. I'll just be doing ceremonies left and right. So... and lurker rushes left and right. So if you want an opportunity to play against a mediocre Zerg player, but who is a commentator on YouTube, do sign up for the SC Cup. I will be probably playing on one of the teams there, and you know, when the matches are scheduled, I certainly will be playing whoever I'm matched up against and doing lurker rushes, because it's the only thing I know how to do against Protoss and Terran, so watch out for that. Looks like Stork going around with that shuttle. Looks like he's managed to find a little hole here in ForGG's lines. Meanwhile, ForGG has picked up his mineral only, although we haven't taken a shot of it, and he might be picking up the 5 o'clock pretty soon. Both sides massing up in that central valley of Blue Storm. ForGG with I think, a definite advantage, although Stork, I think, has taken his natural expansion back, so I'm actually really not sure why ForGG didn't keep up the pressure there with the tanks. Oh, and Stork dropping a reaver. Nice work there, but it looks like the reaver is surrounded with tanks, so not going to get anything, I think. Although he might drop it behind the SCV line and get a couple more. There is that turret and a mine there, and ForGG showing that... Oh, Stork! Oh, Stork, nice control there. ForGG is showing that he is a very careful player in addition to being a very creative player, and this is what I like about ForGG. Some Terran players are very aggressive but not so careful in the mid game, and I actually count Flash as one of them. To be honest, in the mid to late game, he often is so good with planning his multi-way attacks and expanding, but his defense just isn't that great. You should check out Flash versus Much for... honestly, some big mistakes from Flash, I think, in Game 3. I won't go over it because you guys probably haven't watched some of it. I won't say who wins, but definitely something to watch out for. And to compare, really, Flash versus Much and ForGG versus Stork, I think it's interesting because Stork isn't the same as... well, you know, while obviously the two pairs are not the same as each other, you know, there are some similarities and differences that are interesting to watch. Meanwhile, Stork going in for a big punishing attack in the center here, and he's sending in all these speed lots, and oh, eating so many mine zone. I think Stork is not going to be able to succeed. Yeah, Stork, meanwhile, though, taking advantage of this to drop that reaver once again in the natural expansion, and this time I think ForGG is not prepared. He is not noticing this. Wow, 12 kills on the reaver, 13 kills, taking out all the SCVs at that mineral-only expansion, running out of scarabs meanwhile, but rebuilding it, and he's going to polish off the rest of the stuff over there. And that shuttle has definitely been worth its weight in minerals and Vespian gas here for Stork. So really, Stork managing to deal good damage to ForGG, breaking a couple of parts of the contain there, killing off a number of tanks. So ForGG really doesn't have the offensive pressure to cross that valley and enter Stork's bases. Meanwhile, Stork probably will pick up the 12 pretty soon. ForGG up to Science Facility, going to probably get at least one Science Vessel sometime soon. I'm going to guess Stork is going for Arbiters eventually. That probably will be his tech of choice. No real reason to go for carriers at this point with the food count so high. And yeah, so ForGG actually pushing forward in the center now, so trying to just inch forward, and this is what often Protoss versus Terran becomes, or Terran versus Terran actually becomes on Blue Storm. Both sides just trying to inch forward and gain the central ground, because if you manage to take the central ground entirely, you can send flanking forces around and hit the 12 or 6 o'clock positions and also the corner expansions. Meanwhile, Stork going for a break. He knows how important it is not to let ForGG creep into his base and into his territory. He looks like he's going to pick off the front tanks again with his zealots and then retreat. This is really interesting. Much did not do that in his games against Flash. What Much really did were just punishing attacks on the flanks. He did not go for these kind of dancing attacks that Stork's going for. Interesting enough, Stork dancing in with the Zealots and Dragoons, and then pulling the Dragoons out after the Zealots have sacrificed themselves. Really interesting player from Stork. And also, I think Much went for a lot more Templar and went for the tech much quicker. Stork relying on just Zealot Dragoons. Now the first High Templar are out. Nice storm there on the tanks and the vultures. And Stork looks like he's running the speed lots too. Good storms by Stork. Just as I was saying, he was relying on just Dragoons and Zealots. He comes out with the High Templar finally and gets some nice storm out. Looks like he's going for the kill here. Looks like he will take out the tanks. And looks like, wow, Stork coming from behind after losing the expansion nexus. I think he's definitely in the lead now. He's 20 supply count ahead of ForGG, and I think ForGG is mainly down to just SCVs now with his supply count. No army left but vultures. And he desperately just needs to hold the center with vultures while he gets a couple more tanks. Looks like he finally has 3 tanks up there, so looks like Stork's managing to stop. This is an exciting set here from these two players. I honestly thought that ForGG would be a little bit better than Stork, to be honest, but Stork showing that he is definitely not slumping, despite the fact that he hasn't really been that well known. And whoa, Stork is going for carriers, so defying my expectations. I think the reason partially is because he feels like he's killed off enough troops of ForGG that he'll have a brief respite during which he can build up carriers. Carriers are effective on Blue Storm, as I've said a few times. It is a good map for carriers, and you know, so you know, it's not a bad idea to go for carriers, honestly. Stork also using that shuttle very well there in the backfield, picking off a couple of tanks. I don't think ForGG even noticed that, but the tanks really from behind are destroyed, and ForGG is trying to establish a defense in depth here. I think Flash was better than ForGG in his tank defense, actually, to be honest. Much couldn't go for these frontal attacks against Flash because he would have just lost. There's no way he would have penetrated so far as Stork is doing every time against ForGG, because his tanks are just bunched up together, very susceptible to frontal assault, and they're not as deep as Flash's were. These subtle differences, really, despite the builds being very similar, do make the difference. These subtle tactical differences, the playing styles between ForGG and Flash, just very interesting to watch. I can't say which one's superior overall, to be honest. You know, both certainly have their merits and their disadvantages. Of course, if you have a very deep supply line, a very deep defensive line, rather, you're very open to flanks because you're not very powerful at any given point. So the Protoss player can really go around your main force, and whereas ForGG really can hold a secure line and hold it along the lateral angle, I guess, the lateral angle, whereas Flash is forced to be more deep rather than wide in his defenses, if that makes any sense to you. In the game 3 of Flash versus Much, he held the center very deeply, but he didn't have enough defenses on the flanks. Of course, this is we're talking about different maps here, so it's not a complete comparison, but this is just my general thoughts, my musings on these two players and how their defensive play works. Looks like, oh man, looks like Stork building out 3 Stargates now. He's going to be going for the mass carriers, and I think ForGG probably knows about this, but he's just unable to change his build too much because Stork still has an equal, if not superior, ground force, so he can't really switch to glides right now. He is forced to go for the vultures, and just taking a look at the mineral count, he doesn't have that much in the bank, to be honest. I don't think he has enough to switch to glides in time, so he could be in huge trouble once the carriers come out. Of course, another possibility is that simply in the rush of things, he doesn't know it's coming. And that could be absolutely terrible for him if he just doesn't know it's coming, if he doesn't know carriers are coming. I mean, you know, usually the players do know it's coming, but it could be possible that he just hasn't had a scan there in a while. And looks like Stork continue to prevent, or trying to prevent ForGG from creeping up to the center. A lot of speed lots coming through.